In 1808, the Chinese emperor sent his navy to destroy the most dangerous pirate fleet in the South China Sea. The fleet that met them didn't run, it attacked. And when the smoke cleared, roughly half the Imperial Navy was burning or captured. The person commanding this armada of 1,800 ships and an estimated 80,000 pirates wasn't a warlord or a military commander. She was a former prostitute from a floating brothel in Canton, and within 3 years she would force the Chinese government to surrender on her terms. Her name, or at least the name history remembers her by, was Qing Shi. It translates simply to Cheng's widow. But what she accomplished under that name made her the most successful pirate who ever lived. She was born Shi Yang around 1775 in Guangdong Province, one of the poorest regions in southern China. By her early teens, she was working on a flower boat, a floating brothel that drifted through the harbor of Canton. It wasn't a choice, it was survival. But Qing Shi didn't just endure, she learned. She built relationships with wealthy clients, military officers, and traders who visited the boats. She collected information. She understood how to use what she knew, and she became known across the harbor as much for her intelligence as for anything else. In 1801, a pirate named Zheng Yi came for her. He commanded a growing fleet called the Red Flag Fleet, and he wanted Qing Shi as his wife. The accounts differ on whether she agreed willingly or was taken by force. But one detail appears in every version of the story. She negotiated before the marriage happened. She demanded equal control of the fleet and an equal share of all plunder. Zheng Yi agreed. Together they turned the Red Flag Fleet into the dominant force in the South China Sea. In just a few years, they expanded from roughly 200 ships to over 600 and unified 6 rival pirate clans into a single confederation, using Lantau Island as their base of operations. They raided merchant vessels, foreign traders, and Qing government ships across waters stretching from Vietnam to Canton. Then, in November 1807, Zheng Yi died. Some sources say it was a typhoon, others say combat. Either way, the most feared pirate fleet in Asia was suddenly without its leader. And this is where the story of Qing Shi separates from the story of every other pirate in history. She didn't step aside. She didn't hand command to her husband's adopted son, Zhang Bao, who was the expected successor. Instead, she struck a deal with him. She would lead the fleet, he would run military operations, and to seal the alliance, she married him. Now in sole command, Qing Shi did something that no pirate before her had managed. She turned an unruly confederation of outlaws into a disciplined, self-governing organization. Her code of laws was absolute. Any pirate who disobeyed a direct order was executed immediately. Deserting your post cost you your ears the first time. The second time, it cost your life. All seized goods had to be reported and registered with fleet leadership. Anyone caught hiding loot was beaten severely, and repeat offenders were killed. But the most distinctive rules involved the treatment of captives. Rape of a female prisoner was punishable by death. If a pirate wanted to take a captive as his wife, it had to be consensual, and he was required to marry her and remain faithful. Unattractive or pregnant captives were released. Marital infidelity meant execution for both parties. These rules weren't just guidelines. They were enforced with public executions. And because of that, the Red Flag Fleet operated with a level of discipline that most national navies couldn't match. The Qing government tried everything to stop her. In 1808, they assembled a massive fleet of warships and set a trap for the Red Flag Fleet. Qing Shi sailed straight into them. She didn't just survive the engagement. She destroyed roughly half the Imperial fleet and captured several warships in the process. The emperor tried again in 1809, another defeat. He turned to the Portuguese navy for help. They fought a series of engagements near Macau, but they couldn't break the fleet either. The British East India Company also clashed with her ships. They failed too. At her peak, Qing Shi controlled over 1,800 ships and somewhere between 70,000 and 80,000 pirates. For comparison, Blackbeard, the most famous pirate in the Western world, commanded 4 ships and about 300 men. Shi's fleet imposed taxes on coastal villages stretching from Macau to Canton. She ran a spy network in port towns. She was more organized and more militarily effective than the government trying to destroy her. We dig into stories like this every week. If that sounds good, subscribe. By early 1810, the situation began to shift. Guo Podai, commander of the Black Flag Fleet, the second largest fleet in the Confederation, defected to the Qing government and was pardoned for all his crimes. That betrayal weakened the pirate coalition from the inside and gave the government an opening. The Qing began offering amnesty to any pirate willing to surrender. For men who had spent years eating boiled rice and caterpillars to survive rough stretches at sea, the idea of a quiet retirement with their accumulated loot was hard to resist. Shi saw the writing on the wall. The external pressure was mounting, and the internal cohesion was cracking. But she was still undefeated on the water, and that gave her leverage. On April 8, 1810, she did something no one expected. She walked into the residence of Pai Ling, the governor-general of the Liangquang territory, escorted only by the wives and children of her pirate captains. No soldiers, no weapons, just the women and kids. And she negotiated the terms of her own retirement. The deal she demanded was extraordinary. Full pardons for herself and every pirate in the Red Flag Fleet. Zhang Bao would receive an officer's commission in the Qing Navy. She would personally retain a fleet of 80 junks and a crew of 5,000 sailors. And she would keep every cent of wealth she had accumulated over 9 years of piracy. The Qing government accepted. Over 17,000 pirates were pardoned in a single day, surrendering 226 junks, more than 1,300 cannons, and nearly 2,800 weapons. Shi moved to Macau, opened a gambling house, and reportedly ran a salt trading operation and a brothel. Full circle from where she started, except now she was one of the wealthiest women in southern China. She had a son in 1813 and a daughter after that. When Zhang Bao died at sea in 1822, she continued managing her businesses alone. She died peacefully in 1844 at the age of 69, surrounded by her family. Think about that ending for a moment. Every famous pirate you've ever heard of was either captured, killed in battle, or executed by a government. Blackbeard was shot and beheaded. Captain Kidd was hanged. Anne Bonny disappeared into obscurity. Shi negotiated her way out, kept her fortune, and died of old age. She was born into poverty, forced into sex work as a child, married into piracy, and then built the largest pirate fleet in recorded history. She defeated the Chinese, Portuguese, and British navies, governed a floating empire with a legal code stricter than most nations, and walked away from all of it on her own terms. If you want to see how another underdog built an empire from nothing, that video is on screen now. Click it.